Taoiseach, John Drennan, writing in the Irish Mail on Sunday, reported that just a small percentage of hotel beds currently being utilised by refugees and asylum seekers will revert back to the tourism market this year. In fact, data provided to the Irish Mail on Sunday by Minister O'Gorman's department revealed that just over 2,500 hotel bed spaces will be put back into the tourism market in the 5 months from January until the end of this month. A further 483 rooms will be made available for tourism between now and the end of June, due to 4 hotels ending their contracts. However, as the paper went on to note, the numbers of refugees and asylum seekers being housed in hotels and B&Bs here still exceeds 37,500, and this figure is likely to remain constant for the rest of the year, leading to a potential loss of €1 billion in revenue for non-accommodation tourism businesses. Many of these, as you know, are small businesses. I am aware that Fáilte Ireland analysis, which came up with this figure, was presented to you last week, and indeed they came before the Oireachtas committee, highlighting the very concerns that I'm highlighting here today. Taoiseach, the Irish Tourism Industry Confederation, also recently said that Ireland is an outlier in Europe in the depth of its reliance on tourism beds for refugees. This is a very clear indication that in responding to an international crisis, we have created a serious national crisis for small businesses, small tourism businesses, particularly those in rural Ireland, who are traditionally reliant on downstream revenue created by a vibrant tourism sector. I would also point out, Taoiseach, that I'm not the only one raising these concerns. In fact, senior Fine Gael sources who spoke to the Mail on Sunday, which by the way is not the ditch, also expressed their alarm. One is reported as saying the following: the situation is creating real unease in rural Ireland. Rural Ireland is ready to explode. We are being turned into economic ghettos where tourism is forced out of rural Ireland. Dublin hotels may be booming, but ours are full of refugees wandering around main streets without a penny to spend. Now, unless you want to characterise these senior Fine Gael sources as part of some far-right conspiracy, you will have to deal with the seriousness of this situation. Taoiseach, I want to know exactly what is being done to rescue our rural tourism from the effects of government's over-reliance on hotels. I want to know what you are doing and what you're doing to take this matter seriously. And I don't want to hear you dismissing it, because that is not fair to the small businesses in rural Ireland who are suffering because of the action or indeed inaction of government. I want to hear of a credible pathway outlined in terms of the mitigation measures that government departments can take to reduce the potential loss of €1 billion in revenue from the rural economy. And I welcome your thoughts and indeed your proposals on this matter, Taoiseach.
Thanks, Deputy, and thank you for raising this issue. And it is a serious issue, and one that I think it's right and valid to raise. There are a lot of tourism towns in the country that are being adversely affected by the fact that we had no alternative but to accommodate so many people fleeing the war in Ukraine, fleeing war in other parts of the world in tourist accommodation. Whether it's Killarney, whether it's Westport, whether it's towns in North Clare, lots of other parts of the country, particularly down the west coast. While the hotels and B&Bs may be full, the restaurants, the bars and the attractions will see less custom by virtue of the fact that those beds have been taken up by refugees. And we do understand that that's a problem and that those businesses are going to be hurting, and we are looking at ways as to how we can help. And Fáilte Ireland, the Tourism Development Authority, is working on proposals, but we have to get them right. And we have to do it at a time when we need to bear in mind that huge numbers of other businesses are experiencing labour shortages. So we have to make sure that's the right sort of intervention. One very simple one, which the Minister is doing with Fáilte Ireland, is encouraging more day trips to tourism towns. So at least that will help the attractions and the bars and restaurants. But that on its own can't be the solution. Other businesses will need help too, particularly the attractions, and we are examining options in that regard. But, you know, I don't think it's right to make it just an urban-rural issue. You only have to walk up the road to the north inner city and see how many people from all over the world are now taking shelter in our north inner city from Ukraine and from other parts of the world. Go to Dublin 8, go to my own constituency of Dublin 15. It's not just about rural Ireland. Urban Ireland is diverse, urban Ireland is multicultural, urban Ireland has taken in people from all over the world, workers and refugees. So I think it's wrong to simply put it or try to pit urban Ireland against rural Ireland in that sense. But I do acknowledge that there is a particular issue in relation to tourism towns and non-accommodation tourist businesses that are losing out, and we need to help them out. We're working on proposals to do exactly that. And again, we shouldn't lose sight of the bigger picture here. Europe is at war. Terrible things are happening beyond the boundaries of Europe. Nearly 100,000 people have sought refuge in Ireland, and we as a country and we as a society have provided them with shelter, food, accommodation, employment and education. And that's actually something I'm proud of, quite frankly, Deputy. And I hope you'll agree that those people, those who are fleeing persecution, who are fleeing war, particularly from Ukraine, are welcome here in Ireland. And let's not forget that 10,000 now live in pledged accommodation in people's homes or in vacant properties given up to them. That's a pretty decent number. Slow start, but a pretty decent number now at this stage. We'll have the first modular homes open in June. Refurbished homes and properties are being delivered. And of course, we have the Community Integration Fund, about €50 million is going to be allocated to communities to recognise the fact that they've welcomed people from overseas.
Taoiseach, I thank you for your response. But look, the fact of the matter here is, I understand, we all know that there's a war. But the fact of the matter is that Ireland is an outlier in Europe in terms of the reliance on hotel beds, in terms of the reliance on the beds from B&Bs and guest houses. We're different. So why are we so different? Why have the other countries adopted a more sensible approach and protected their local economies more than we have? And that's the fact of the matter here. This by no means is being set out as division by me in terms of being a rural or urban issue. But I am a rural TD and I see my own constituency suffering day in, day out. I see Bord na Móna jobs being lost. And we are trying to build, like every other place in Ireland, Offaly and Laois are trying to build up their tourism. And then we see this, where there's beds not available. Like, Taoiseach, when you get down to the facts, every €1 spent on accommodation by every tourist or visitor means another €2.50 into that local economy. And the Fáilte Ireland, the paper approved by Fáilte Ireland, argued that there needs to be mitigation measures put in place for businesses that depend on tourism, such as bike hire, tourism, boating and cafes. And we will see a loss of €1.1 billion in our local economy. That is serious, and that's not being divisive. I'm laying out the facts in black and white, Taoiseach.
Thanks, Deputy. I think we're an outlier in some ways. We're not an outlier in others. Lots of countries, particularly in Eastern Europe, have taken in many more people than we have from Ukraine, both in raw numbers and as a percentage of their population. And while we've taken in a lot more people from Ukraine than France has, for example, France will point out how many they've taken in from Syria and Algeria and other parts of the world. We are more reliant on the use of hotels and B&Bs than other countries, largely because they were available at the time. Other countries have used barges. See the camps in France, see the camps in Belgium, see what's happening alongside the canals in Brussels. Thankfully we haven't had to do what's happened in other countries. See the containers that are being used in Greece. I know it is having an impact on local economies, but isn't it a better thing that we were able to use hotels and B&Bs than to have people living in containers like they do in Greece, or in camps like they do in France, or in Belgium, or on barges, or being sent on planes back to Africa, which is what they propose to do in Britain. I wouldn't like to be in that position. But to come back to my initial response, we do accept that a number of tourism towns, in particular around the country, have been adversely affected. The accommodation providers are getting income, but the bars, the restaurants, the attractions are losing out, and we are developing plans and schemes to help out with that.